By the early 2000s, Spider-Man was just starting off one of the most bankable movie franchises of all time. The world was excited to see what the future of Spider-Man had in store for them. And in between Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, David Koepp would once again write an unused Spider-Man script, this time for Spider-Man 2. So, what if it was made? After the absolute behemoth of a success that was Spider-Man from 2002, it should come as no surprise that a sequel was quickly prioritized. However, the second film was actually commissioned a month before the first movie had even been released. Columbia would hire Alfred Gough and Miles Miller, likely best known for their work on the Superman TV show Smallville. David Koepp would also be brought in once again to co-write the script. Now, this version of the movie would have been called The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, unfortunately, as far as I can tell anyway, this script has never been released anywhere. However, the rumor mill has stipulated that the story would have revolved around Peter Parker, who started college by this point in Kurt Connor's class. He'd meet Gwen Stacy, who would be a fellow student in this class, and the two would quickly form an attraction for each other. Now, surprisingly, Peter would actually go against his own rule set at the end of the first movie and begin a romantic relationship with her. Now, Peter would be looking into his parents' deaths, and his search for answers would take him to Dr. Otto Octavius, an old colleague of the Parker family. However, it would later be revealed that Octavius was the one who murdered them, sending Peter on a revenge quest which only alienates him more from the people that he cares about. Now, along the way, Peter would actually begin to lose his powers, and we later discover that the other genetically engineered super spiders lost their abilities over time as well. This would be revealed by Octavius, who would turn out to be the one who created the spiders in the first place. Octavius, in this version, actually would have been an enemy of the state, who sold out US government secrets, which makes him one of the most wanted criminals in the country. He would use his metal arms to kill anyone that gets in his way, thus earning him the nickname of Doc Ock. Now, Peter would have competition at the Daily Bugle in the form of Eddie Brock, who was actually mentioned in the first film and then weirdly forgotten about for some reason. Now, with Peter wanting vengeance on Doc Ock, the city begins to see him as a threat because he's going to lengths he's never gone to before. Now, the police issue an arrest warrant, with Gwen's father, Captain Stacy, leading the charge. Harry Osborn would actually have teamed up with J. Jonah Jameson to slander Spider-Man at any given opportunity. He would also form an alliance with Doc Ock. The two of them would then later frame Spider-Man for the murder of Captain Stacy. But despite this, he continues trying to be Spider-Man, but the city now hates him no matter what he does. He saves a woman's life, and she still hates him afterwards. So Peter decides to quit being Spider-Man, and actually lights his suit on fire. However, Harry's alliance with Doc Ock would predictably fall through, and he would actually try to kill Harry, which would lead to Peter becoming Spider-Man again in order to save him. Now, in the end, he has the opportunity to kill Doc Ock and avenge his parents, but he chooses to arrest him instead, because he remembers what happened the last time he sought out revenge. It led to Uncle Ben's death. He then prepares to continue being Spider-Man, the hated hero of New York. Now, I've heard that in one scenario, Gwen Stacy actually would have died in this movie, which would free Peter up to pursue MJ in the third film, or in a second scenario, Gwen would survive, only to be killed by Harry in the next movie. Now, also apparently, they plan to have both the Lizard and Black Cat in this movie somehow too. However, most likely due to the extensive amount of new characters, as well as the unnecessary inclusion of a storyline revolving around Peter's parents, Columbia ultimately rejected Koepp, Gough, and Miller's script in September of 2002. So what do I think of this version of Spider-Man 2? I don't like it that much, sorry. I kind of get what they're going for here. I don't necessarily hate the idea of trying to tie, Peter and Doc Ock together personally, but I think it works better when they're not so close already. Like, I think it works better when they just start off as kind of acquaintances or possibly friends, but like not like to the point that he literally murdered his parents. You know what I mean? I think that that's just going a step too far. I think it would just be a little bit silly by that point, just in my opinion. And then, there's the stuff with him selling out, the US government, which I just think would make him too much of a general villain and not a Spider-Man villain. Because if they wanted to do a personal villain, I think making him a nationwide villain would just kind of ruin the impact of that a little bit, at least in my opinion, because then it would kind of take the focus away from, the fact that he's a Spider-Man villain. And then I have other problems with this too. I do like the idea of Harry teaming up with J. Jonah Jameson, and it makes sense for him to team up with Doc Ock. I don't mind that. But, like, they had other things in the script I didn't even bother mentioning, like Harry getting engaged to a girl basically just to try and make Mary Jane jealous, which is kind of dumb because MJ's not with Peter in that movie, in this version or the final version, so it's just weird. And speaking of that, why would Peter end up with Gwen if he turned down MJ at the end of the last movie? If he didn't want to be with MJ because he was scared for her safety, then why would he make an exception for Gwen? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. He doesn't even know Gwen that well. He's known MJ since he was 6, and he's had a crush on her since he was 6. So it doesn't really make sense. Like, why would he turn down MJ just to go out with Gwen? Gwen would have to be like the most perfect girl in the world, and maybe she would have been. I don't know, but I still think that would have been a big plot hole that a lot of people would be pointing out, honestly. And I don't mind necessarily Peter losing his powers being explained by the spiders, but I think it works better with the idea that he lost his powers because he lost the will to be Spider-Man. I think that works. I think it's a more personal story, and I think it works better, personally. I'm okay with them explaining it away with the spiders, but I don't think it works as well. I don't think it fits as well, at least in my opinion. And then you throw in the fact that apparently the Lizard and Black Cat were going to be in this too. It's just like, where would they fit them in all this, honestly? Those two are definitely characters I think are worthy of separate movies. You know what I mean? Doc Ock as a character I think works best, all by himself. Just a movie with just him as the villain works better. And then I would save Black Cat for probably the third film, and the Lizard for probably the third film as well. I think that would work a lot better, personally. But to have them all in this movie at once, it's just, I don't think that would work at all, honestly. So yeah, I'm sorry, but overall, I do think that the one we got sounds a lot better, personally. This one just sounds a little bit overcomplicated and overstuffed, because it's got so many characters in it that don't need to be there, and the characters it uses, it overcomplicates their story. Like, we don't need to know that Doc Ock is a fugitive of the government. We don't need to know that he killed Peter Parker's parents. Like, all due respect, nobody cares about Peter Parker's parents, okay? I've never cared about them. I think most people don't care about them. Most people only care about Uncle Ben and Aunt May, because that's the way it should be, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, Harry just getting engaged to this girl just because he wants to make Mary Jane and Peter jealous, it's like, it's stupid. Like, he wouldn't do that. I don't understand why he would do that. Like, I know he was a little bit, like, stupid because he was becoming drunk and, he was acting out of vengeance, but, like, that's far even for him. Like, I feel like he wouldn't do that. And he would have to know it wouldn't work. I mean, MJ left him because she didn't like him that much, or did she? Because they got together kind of in Spider-Man 3. It's weird. Like, she was clearly not interested in him, and then she was. It was so weird. But it just, that plan doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, so overall, I definitely prefer the one we got. I don't mind the title being The Amazing Spider-Man, because apparently the next one would have been called The Spectacular Spider-Man, so that would have been kind of cool, to have each movie with kind of like a different, title like that, not just 1, 2, 3, that would have been kind of cool, but, Besides that, I mean, I would have liked to see the Lizard and Black Cat, don't get me wrong, and I do think Gwen Stacy probably would have been a better love interest to start off with instead of Mary Jane, but I don't like this version, I'm sorry. I'm happy that Harry gets to do more, and I do think a team between him and J. Jonah Jameson would be fun, and it would make a lot of sense. But the rest of the story, I don't really like that much, honestly. But apparently, I'm in the minority because the other people I've heard say that they actually think this version could have been better, which. Nah, not in my opinion. You have to understand, Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man movie, at least as of now. I still haven't seen No Way Home, so No Way Home could end up taking that spot, but I seriously doubt it. But yeah, I mean, Spider-Man 2 is great as it is, and I really don't think that this version would top it. It could be decent, but it wouldn't be as good as the first, and therefore would not be anywhere close to as good as the Spider-Man 2 that we got in real life. So I'm happy with the one that we got, ultimately. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of this version of Spider-Man 2. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share with all of your friends and all your various social media platforms. And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Rinzler_Productions, and I'll see all of you tomorrow in the next video.